So how do we evaluate our search results and find really good, trustworthy sources? So again, we're going to start with a poll. So this one is primarily geared towards students. So if you are an instructor or a librarian, think about what your students would say. So let's say you just read a great Wikipedia article, you really understand your topic now. What do? Do you cite that Wikipedia article? Do you pretend you didn't read it because Wikipedia is not allowed? Or do you use the Wikipedia article reference list to find relevant original research to read and cite? You want to go ahead and answer that. And we want to close the poll. Awesome. So 87% of you are on the right, on the same page with using the Wikipedia article to find relevant original research. However, the other two options are also allowed in APA style. It's really about making sure you're making the best decisions for your paper. So when you're looking for trusted resources, the first thing that's going to save you time is to use library resources and other curated databases that are not going to pull from, you know, the wild west of the internet. They are curated. It's only going to have certain types of journals that are likely to be maybe peer reviewed or have other qualities that make them trustworthy sources. So things like PsycNet, CINAHL, EBSCOhost, PubMed, things like that can be really helpful. Also, I know we have some librarians on the line, and I'm sure they have created research guides. You likely have a research guide organized by subject that can really help you as a student to understand what resources are available to you. You likely have a number of different academic research databases to choose from and peer-reviewed sources. So something like PubMed, if you're writing about health, that is available to anybody and does have a large number of open source articles that could be helpful if you don't have access to a school or a library. So if you are a student in school or a researcher who is affiliated with an academic institution, use your subject LibGuide and your librarian for help. No matter where the source comes from, it is important to critically evaluate the sources. There is always a reason why somebody would want to cite any different type of source based on their specific research. But we want to be able to critically evaluate them and make those decisions. No matter what you decide, your instructor guidelines are going to come first. In APA style, we don't have a specific guideline that the research has to be 5 years old or less. We don't require that information is peer reviewed. However, if your instructor does have these guidelines, they are in charge. Please listen to them. However, if you are evaluating the source and making that decision on your own, what you're looking for is this paper relevant to your topic, written by experts, peer reviewed, published in an academic journal or book, and it's current and not outdated. Again, there is an exception for every rule, but thinking about these things will help you make the right decision. To remember this different criteria, it can be interesting to note that the source qualities relate to the 4 elements of a reference. So every reference is composed of the author, date, title, and source. So when you're looking at this information, think, was this written by experts? Who is the author? Is this current information? Is it not outdated? The date, is it relevant? Maybe that corresponds to the title. And is it published in an academic journal or book and peer review? That would relate to the source. In addition, we want to make sure you're thinking about other qualities of the research paper when you're choosing what sources to use. First of all, you have read them yourself. So AI can be a helpful tool to help you understand something, but you cannot rely on AI to completely read the paper for you. You need to read the work and that you're citing yourself. Also, you want to look at papers maybe that report primary or original research. So think about words like experiment, empirical, variable, statistical analysis, method, results, discussion, etc. Or you might want to use papers that analyze existing research. So things like literature review, meta-analysis, systematic review, or synthesis. Regardless of what your source is, it's important to think about what the quality of the evidence is. So pay attention to the labels that are going to be associated with your journal article. It might say something like research article, letter to the editor, or preprint. And think about, is this opinion or is this science? So we kind of categorize them in three different ways. So is this a letter to the editor, or is it an opinion piece, versus is it original research, or is it an analysis of research? You can learn more about the different types of papers in Chapter 1 of your pub manual if you have one around. Another tip is to look past the AI generated summary. So in a lot of different tools, we're basically seeing AI come up in so many different places where it didn't before. Just keep in mind that AI generated summaries are reflecting AI training data, and it might not be what you need. Make sure to identify and read the actual source. So I asked Google a question, it came up with a handy AI overview, and it drew from sources like Reddit. So it would be a good idea that I look deeper, I find the actual source things are based on, instead of just relying on the overview that's presented to me. Another thing to keep in mind is when you are using a search engine, especially an AI tool, they often have preprints just incorporated in the search results. Preprints are exactly what they sound like. This is work that has not yet been published in a journal. It might not be peer reviewed yet. It might not have gone through the editorial process, and it might not even be the final copy of the manuscript. However, they can be really good if you're working on, cutting edge information and emerging fields. It is important to exercise caution when using preprints, just knowing it has not been completely reviewed. But we wanted to bring this up because we've found that AI search results rely very heavily on preprints, and it's important for students to know what they're looking at when they're looking at these research studies. Another thing that you're likely to come upon is, of course, secondary sources, which are going to report on information secondhand. So we want to beware the game of telephone. So these things can be misinterpreted by the author. They can be exaggerated to make a more clickable headline, and their application may not be yours. So if you're looking at a secondary source that's helpful, try and go to the original source to see for yourself and find the most applicable information. No matter what type of source it is, if you find something you like a really interesting point, try and follow the science and go back to the actual article that the information is based on and read it for yourself. Finally, I wanted to talk about evaluating for bias and misinformation. And we have a really good new activity on this. If Robin, you wouldn't mind putting that link in the chat. So when you're looking at search information, we know that there is a lot of misinformation that often looks like really good, high quality information. So what you want to look for is, does the work have sources to substantiate facts and claims? You want to look out for things like conflict of interest. Does the author have a reason to publish beyond just science? Like maybe it's a corporation telling you their food product is very healthy. Maybe it's a political organization or something like that. Also look for things like irresistible clickbait language. You can see the little computer monster on the side is saying must see facts and what scientists don't want you to know. And also cherry picking. So some misinformation will be using a trustworthy source, but they're only going to pick out little pieces of information that support their claims instead of looking at the information as a whole. So again, we have the evaluating sources activity, which can be really helpful for anyone who's looking for information. So in summary, how do we make sure that we are using our search results to find really good sources? Our first tip is researching from a curated database, such as something from the library, evaluating the author, date, title, and source of the work, considering the quality of evidence, is it opinion or empirical research, looking beyond the AI summary, being aware of preprints and their limitations, digging deeper with secondary sources to find primary sources, and checking for bias and misinformation.